You must forgive those who have wronged you, or they will harm you every day for the rest of your life. Hey, what's up, Prosperity Nation? Good morning from Miami. Good afternoon, good evening. Wherever else you are in the world, just wave, check in and say hi. Let me know where you're watching from. You guys on the replay, same thing. Please let me know where you watch from. And circulate the energy. Think of somebody you know who needs more prosperity in their life. Send them a text, please, and let them know, give them the link so they can watch. Let me just check in and see who we got here. Okay, I see Senor Melendez is in the house. I need to make you a co-host so for everybody's dining and dancing pleasure. John Fogg is in the house. Good to see you. Ford Sakes, what are you doing here? You couldn't get it must be raining in Wichita or snowing and he couldn't do a bike ride or something. Oh my God, it is pretty wide. Oh, see, Payam in Iran. And okay, good. I think that's Reverend Trapp in California. Good to see Jose Lopez in the house and Paula. And of course, Agnes in, where are you? Hungary, I think. Good to see you. And I got the other Agnes, I think in UK, Agnes Fitzgerald, I think. I don't remember where you're at. And Lisa Ryan's in the house. So for you guys who are just joining us, we do this every Saturday, 10 a.m. It's a prosperity celebration service. And we look at it's a for-profit prosperity ministry where I try to model the principles of prosperity that I teach each week. So we do a lesson every week. The lesson this week is on forgiveness. Now, if I wanted to do the clickbait thing and the YouTube algorithm thing, I would just talk about money every week. And that would get me lots of clicks and lots of views. But, you know, I have people who actually tithe to me because they don't believe in religion or God maybe. And they see this service as their source of spiritual nourishment. And I owe it to those people, and I think really everybody, that we look at the holistic area of prosperity. And money and material things are an important part of prosperity. But there's a lot of other stuff, our healthy relationships, our health and wellness, our mental health, and spiritual grounding. So things like that. So I just have found one of the biggest issues for people to manifest prosperity in their life is their inability to forgive. They are holding on to something or someone that has wronged them. So we're going to really dig deep into that. I wrote a book called The 7 Spiritual Laws of Prosperity. And it was kind of my take. Catherine Ponder had written a book, The Dynamic Principles of Prosperity, if I remember the title correctly. And I just this was my take on the 7 philosophies that I think are really important, 7 principles that you have to live by. And I felt like forgiveness had to be one of those 7 principles. And having done literally hundreds, perhaps thousands of workshops and seminars on prosperity, I can tell you that the most pushback I get, the most feedback I get is this issue of forgiveness. And I mean, people say the craziest things to me. So a guy I play softball with, he says, my friend started dating my ex. How could I ever forgive him? Like, isn't your ex your ex? Didn't you break up with your ex like 6-7 months ago, if I remember? Yes, but my friend had to know I still had feelings, and how could he do it? I'm like, seriously, this is how you want to spend your day? Because he's like, okay, we're going to throw this guy off the team. I'm never speaking to him again. And I'm like, seriously? He's like, how could I forgive him? I'm like, well, I had a guy who put a gun to my head and then he put the gun down to my abdomen and he shot me to left me for dead in the street in a pool of blood. And I forgave him. So you're telling me I can forgive a guy who shot me and left me for dead, and you can't forgive somebody who kissed your ex in a bar last Saturday night? Is this really the equivalency that we're dealing with here? But that's what it is. People, and here's the thing I want you to understand. It took me years to discover the biggest breakthrough in making prosperity part of your personality, of being able to do it and manifest prosperity. Because I want you to know, if you cannot forgive, you cannot accept abundance. You just can't. Your heart can hold one dominant feeling, right? And if you're holding on to vengeance, there's no place left for love. So I have found, took me 20 years to figure this out. I have found what I believe is the single most important element of prosperity. And I'm not going to tell it to you yet. I'm going to tell it to you near the end. And I promise you, I'm not doing that because it's clickbait or I want to force you to hang around. You leave anytime you want. I'm just saying I can't tell you to the end because you won't believe me until I've prosecuted the case. So I need to set the groundwork of why. And then when I tell this to you, it's going to go off like a light bulb in your head and you're going to say, I get it. That makes complete sense to me. So just know we're going to do that. So let's talk. Let me start with a story. So I told you I had a guy shoot me. So I could go through dramatic story and tell you the whole thing and the ride to the hospital and when they had to put the space suit on me because my heart was failing and how they told me I was going to die. But I don't even have time for all that. I want to get to the meat of the subject, which is forgiveness. So I wake up in the recovery room. The doctors have operated to remove the bullet from my body and staunch the bleeding. They had to sew up part of my intestines again, take out part of it and then sew up the rest, and save my life because I was, this close to dying. I mean, as we were going to the hospital in the ambulance, I mean, they kept radioing my vital signs to the hospital and they just kept getting lower and lower. And then they actually pulled the ambulance over. The driver came back and helped the other guy and they put on that pressurized suit, which they do when your heart is going to stop pumping and it keeps the compression so your heart keeps beating. So that's how close I was. So I wake up in the recovery room and the surgeon is there who operated on me. And he tells me, okay, everything went well. We got the bullet out. We took out your appendix while we're in there, so you don't have to worry about getting appendicitis, and you're going to make it. And I was like, wait. Did I hear you say you took out my appendix? He said, yeah, it's just standard procedure. Anytime we open somebody up, we just take out the appendix because, that way you'd never get appendix later. You don't need it. Well, that's an interesting opinion, but it wasn't one that I shared. I felt like if there was an appendix in my body, there was probably some need for it. And there was some divine order. But the thing that really got me was, I said to the guy, but, I got shot over here. Isn't the appendix on the other side of my abdomen? And he said, oh yeah. I'm like, so there was nothing wrong with my appendix. So you took a perfectly good organ out of my body without even asking me? So yeah, standard procedure. You know, you never know when you might get appendix. Well, that was driving me crazy. So here I should be. This guy just saved my life. I should be just bubbling over with gratitude. And all I'm thinking on is, this guy took out my appendix and he never even asked me, right? Was making me crazy. And so I was really holding resentment. And it took me a couple of weeks of really doing my daily self-development and reading Catherine Ponder and reading Charles Fillmore and reading Ernest Holmes, and realize, okay, I need to forgive this doctor who mindlessly took out my organ, because he was doing the very best he could with what he had to work with. And him and all those people at the hospital, they saved my life. I'm only here to have this debate because they prevented me from dying. So that was a complete reframe. Now I'm living in gratitude because, hey, I've got another day. And this is, you know, it's such a seminal event when something like that happens. And I know maybe most of you have not been shot, but you may have got a really bad medical diagnosis. You may have been in a horrific accident. You may have faced down death, or you know people who have faced down death. And that's a wonderful prosperity lesson, because you never take another sunrise or sunset for granted. You never take another day for granted. I mean, it's just, you really learn to celebrate the moment, live in the moment, and appreciate life. And so I thought, okay, I'm really on the way back. But in like another week or two later, I happened to be in church at Unity on the Bay, and I was wearing a white shirt, and I happened to look down, and it was covered with blood, because where they had sewn me up, it got infected, and and I was in a lot of pain. It hurt to sit down, it hurt to stand up, it hurt to lay down. It was just so this pain kept driving me crazy. And then I saw this blood, and then I go back to the hospital, and I go to the emergency room, and I end up sitting there for 6 hours to get treated, and then get out again, and then I'm still in the pain. And so something is wrong. I can't sleep. I'm having these horrific sweats at night. I'm waking up 8 times a night. I sleep for 20 minutes, and then I get fitful and wake up. So I keep going to my regular doctor. Doc, what is it? We got to find what this is. And so we thought, well, you go all over the world doing those speeches. Maybe you got some infectious disease down from the jungles in Peru or someplace. So he sent me to infectious disease guy. That's all clear. He sent me to, ENT guy. That's all clear. Sent me to this specialist, that specialist. I have no health insurance. I'm paying all this out of my pocket. So this is thousands of dollars I'm spending in medical bills with no relief in sight. So, and I keep going back to my regular doctor, and I tell him, doctor, let's do an x-ray. I think they left the bullet inside me. I feel like, because there's all this sweats, and I feel like there's a foreign object in my body, and my body is trying to expel it. So let's do an x-ray. I just have this intuition that the bullet is still inside me. And he said, Randy, they're crazy at Jackson Memorial Hospital, but they're not that crazy. There's no way. If they told you they took the bullet out, they took the bullet out. but I still had that thing. And after the doctor talked to me in the recovery room, two police detectives came in. They were investigating the attempted murder. And they said, one of the guys asked me, how come the surgeon didn't give us the bullet? Because we always get the bullet for evidence. And we see what, caliber it was and what kind of gun. I'm like, why are you asking me? I was asleep during the operation. I think you need to talk to the doctor, right? But I didn't think anything of it. I'm all hyped up on drugs and, it just, so I don't know anything. But so just remember that happened. So finally, this specialist, that specialist, all of, we go over and over and over. And they send me to the gastroenterologist to do the whole intestinal thing where you drink the chalky Pepto-Bismol stuff and they x-ray all that. And so I'm getting ready for that. And the nurse notices the big scar on my stomach where they had done the surgery. So she says, what's the scar? I said, I got shot in a robbery. And, that was where they were, taking out the bullet. So, okay. So now they go and they do the whole surgery. And she comes in afterward and she's like holding the x-ray up and she's bringing it in. She says, I see they left the bullet inside. Is that because it's located right next to your spine? I'm like, what? What you talking about, Willis? I'm like, and then it's like, of course they did. It makes total sense. And so I find out, the bullet is still inside me, and it literally is right next to my spine. I came that close to being paralyzed for the rest of my life. And meanwhile, the bullet's still in there and it can hit the spinal cord at any time. So, and again, I have no insurance. So what am I doing? You go back to my doctor. We find a surgeon, a private surgeon who I can hire that, has their own, it's like one of those surgery centers, a private one. So it's a little cheaper than if you go to a regular hospital, and I have to pay them cash money out of my own pocket. It's thousands of dollars for the operation. But I was able to, arrange to get the bullet taken out. But meantime, think how I am, because this surgeon leaned over my bed and told me that they took the bullet out, that everything went great. So you say, why would he tell me that he took the bullet out if he didn't take it out? And the answer is, I have no idea. It makes no sense to me at all. All I know is I'm still sick. I still can't sleep. And you know how it is. If you don't sleep, you're not healthy. The only way you get healthy is to get enough sleep to allow your body to regenerate. I know, Lornette, you're watching. You know about this, okay? So I'm in this pain. It still hurts. The wound had been affected a couple of times, several other trips to the hospital. So now I'm really vindictive about this doctor because he lied to me. And I don't even know who he is. It was 3 a.m. on a Saturday night. And, you go into the emergency room. It's whatever resident is on. It isn't like they say, oh, this is Randy Gage coming in. He's selected the world's best abdomen surgeon. It's like, okay, it's 3 a.m. The emergency room, who's ever on rotation, that's who you get. So that's who I got. I didn't even know what his name was. I just know I was so mad at him. And so that had really caused me, a lot of issues. And so I'm trying to think what to do. And now I'm telling friends, and friends are telling friends, and they're telling their lawyer friends, and their lawyer friends are contacting me and saying, dude, you have open and shut case for malpractice. We won't even have to go to trial. All we need to do is file this case, and they're going to settle out of court. They'll give you $1 million. I mean, they told you the bullet was out, and you've gone through all this mental anguish and physical hardship, and it's $1 million, easy. And we only need, whatever percent they keep, So I'm thinking what to do. So as I often do when I'm facing difficult decisions, I pick up a book that is important to me, and I look for a lesson in the book. I literally just open the book, flip the pages, and stick my finger in there and figure that's my lesson for the moment. So I pull out the aforementioned book from Reverend Catherine Ponder, The Dynamic Laws of Prosperity. I flip through and boom. And the page is in the chapter, and she's talking about forgiveness and how important it is to forgive people. And she even talks about lawsuits. So she uses an example in the book where she says, how could you sue somebody if you forgive them? Because if you're suing them, it means you're still holding animosity toward them, and if you have vengeance in your heart, there's, you can't let in forgiveness, you can't let in love. So I realize, there goes my $1 million. Again, I really could use this $1 million at that point in my life. Oh my God, I was so broke. I spent so much money on all these medical procedures because I didn't have insurance, and poof, this $1 million. Because you know truth when you hear it. You know truth when you see it. And as I read that paragraph, I realized, yeah, I really can't be suing these guys and be forgiving them in my heart. It's not possible. So I made up my mind to forgive the doctor who lied to me. And by the way, I had already forgiven the guy who shot me. That was easy, believe it or not. The guy who shot me, because this was a crackhead. This is back in the cocaine cowboy days of Miami. And I know what it is to be powerless over an addiction. And I know that guy wasn't thinking clearly. And his thought was, hey, if I kill this guy, there's less chance that he's going to be able to call the police, and the police are going to arrest me. So it's better if I kill him. I know that's what he was thinking. And in his altered state of mind, that's, when you're drugged up on crack, that seems like a logical thing to some people. So I had forgiven him, but I hadn't forgiven the surgeon who had saved my life. And so I read that, and I actually wrote out an affirmation of forgiveness. I wrote it out 13 times. You say, what is the reason for that? There's just a spiritual belief for some of us have about the number 13, that we think it has spiritual quality. So I wrote it out 13 times in my journal, and I spoke it out loud 13 times, that I forgive all these doctors and I live in gratitude that they saved my life. And I was better that night. It's like that night I slept better than I had in months. And the bullet was still inside me. Nothing had changed, but everything had changed because I had forgiven them. And so I did schedule the surgery, and then, went to the private thing and actually had the bullet taken out and everything. But I feel like the big transformation happened to me when I forgave. And one of the best analogies that I've heard about holding on to a grudge is, it's like when you can't forgive somebody, you're holding on to poison, or you're holding on to battery acid. And that just kind of eats you away from the inside. Do you understand? The guy who shot me, he doesn't know that I forgave him. He could have no way of knowing. I would say the odds are very high that he's probably dead. because that's kind of if he didn't find his way into recovery, and I hope he did, then bless him. And I'm so glad I forgave him. And I'm so glad he was able to turn his life around. And if he didn't find his way into recovery, the odds are really good he died. He got killed in a drug deal, or he overdosed, or he just gets so sick that, his body shuts down. That's how the, crack addicts, that's the usual place they end up. So when I forgave him, it didn't register with him because he couldn't know. I did it for me. And this is the thing you've got to understand about forgiveness. You do that for yourself. It isn't for the person you forgive, even though obviously there's some great energy benefits and things we believe, but you do that for yourself. So do you really get that? Give me a sign in the, thumbs up, whatever. Okay, great. You guys watching on the replay, by the way, you guys, I want you, and same thing, listening on the podcast, check in, give me comments, give a rating. You guys on the YouTube channel, rewatching, that's where most of the people see this. Just check in, let me know where you're watching. We're going to have to decide. I don't know. I'm going to talk to Jose and Jorge afterward. You know what, guys, we got to decide if we want to keep the comments open, because with all these trolls we get every week that just have nothing better to do than post this silliness in there. Maybe we have to turn them off for the live thing. I don't know. Let's talk about that. So if you cannot forgive, you cannot experience abundance. You forgive for yourself, because when you forgive others, you give yourself the freedom to release it and move forward. And you can't get to prosperity without that. Now, let's talk about the hardest person in the world to forgive. I'm going to use my psychic power and I'm going to predict. I want you to write in the comments, who is the hardest person in the world to forgive? And let's see if I'm right, what is going to be in the comments. I'm going to turn my head. I'm turning away from the microphone, but I'm betting everybody is writing myself. So let me put on my glasses. Me, myself, self, myself, to forgive Randy Gage, okay, we got an abusive parent, so we got one other one, but pretty much everybody is putting themselves. And I got to say, I've worked with a lot of people who had abusive parents, and for most of them, they had a harder time forgiving themselves than they did their abusive parent. Either way, we got to do both, right? But here's the thing. Here's why I think it's a bridge too far for most people to forgive themselves, is because every petty thought you have ever had. Every duplicitous statement you have ever uttered. You have things you wish you would have never said. You have things you wish you would have never done. I told you, I couldn't really hold a grudge against this crackhead who shot me, because I know what it is to be powerless over an addiction. And I was a teenage alcoholic. I was a teenage drug addict. So, and I fought addiction issues my whole life, really. But I would tell you this: when you're an addict, you are one of the most duplicitous people in the world, because your addiction forces you to be. You will do or say anything to protect your addiction. You lie and you hurt the very people who love you the most. And if you're the child of an alcoholic, or the child of a drug addict, your propensity to become one goes up exponentially. If you're the child of an abusive parent or parents, your propensity to become an abuser goes up exponentially, right? And every petty thing. I remember sneaking into my mother's purse and stealing $1 at a time, thinking, okay, it's only $1. She won't have counted her money. She won't know how much is in there, but I could get $1 or I could take $2, right? That was when I was 14. And I remember it still. I still feel guilty about it, decades later, because I know I did it. I know the lies that I told, because when you're an addict, you've got to have people cover for you. You got to lie to people and call in sick to your boss and tell them things that you've lied to them about so you don't get fired. You learn how to manipulate people, right? And so, and some of you on this, let's be real. We just had the Super Bowl last week. It was like a cold shower over the Super Bowl for me. I was a big Kansas City Chiefs fan, Patrick Mahomes. I wanted to see him get another one. I love Brady. You can't bet against Brady, but I was like, okay, I want Mahomes. And then it's like a week before, one of the coaches, who's Andy Reid's son, got drunk, had some drinks, mixed it with alcohol, went out in a car accident and injured some kids. And there was this little girl, she hadn't woke up in the coma since the accident. She was getting worse. And that just put a damper on the whole game for me. And I just say, there, but by the grace of God go me, right? How lucky I am that I never did that, right? That drove impaired and injured or killed somebody. And don't get me wrong, my prayers are with those children and their families and everything, but they're also with the coach who did it, because I know what it is to be powerless over an addiction. And I know the kind of grief and guilt that he could experience for the rest of his life, right? And it's my fervent hope that the families affected will be able to forgive him and that he will be able to forgive himself. And it's a horrific, tragic thing. And I know there are people watching this right now, whether it's live or on replay, and you have done something that seems so horrific that you feel like you could never forgive yourself. But you've got to, because you were given another chance. It's like, I feel like there's people that I wronged that I can never pay back, right? And some of them are dead. They went to their graves and I was never able to make amends to them for wrongs that I committed against them. But what I can't pay back, I can pay forward. And it's the same for each of you. There are some things that you cannot pay back, but you are able to pay forward. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is if you forgive yourself. Forgive yourself and move on. Because that's the only way through. I want to give you a couple of affirmations. For others, divine love produces perfect harmony between us. This is just an affirmation you could affirm to somebody who had wronged you. And you don't have to tell them in person. You can just write it in your journal. You can just hold a vision of them in your mind and say, divine love produces perfect harmony between us. Another one, these are just from my book. I behold you with eyes of love, and I celebrate your prosperity and honor your innate divinity. I behold you with eyes of love, and I celebrate your prosperity and honor your innate divinity. And then for yourself, the affirmation to put in your journal, to speak out loud, to write down 13 times, to put it on your prosperity manifestation map. For you guys who believe in a supernatural power, try this one. I am forgiven by God's love unconditionally, and all is well. I am forgiven by God's love unconditionally, and all is well. And then a little more secular version. I have grown in my consciousness and release the old me. I forgive myself and move forward to accept my abundance. If you see behind me that poster on the wall, that's my latest book, Radical Rebirth. If you're having issues with forgiving yourself, that's a really, really important book to read right now. Because what it took me a long time to figure out was I didn't have to kill myself because I hated myself. I just had to kill off the parts of me that no longer served me. And I think that's what we're speaking to here when you say you grow in your consciousness and you release the old you, and then you forgive yourself and move forward to accept your abundance. All right, so let me tell you what I think the big breakthrough is, and then we're going to do the love offering, and then I'm going to give you your assignments. So I told you the story about guy I'm playing softball with, and his, our mutual friend gets attracted to his ex, and they become a thing one weekend. So I'm really working with him because it's causing all this dissension on the team. And I'm like, dude, you broke up 6 months ago. There is a statute of limitations on this. You cannot expect people that you dated to remain celibate for the rest of their lives. They have their lives. You were the one who ended the relationship to begin with. And he says something that ding, 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 the bell goes off for me, because his father had died, and he flew home for the funeral. And he told me, how can I forgive him when he was kissing my ex in a bar while I was burying my father? Ding, 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 ding. Here's the breakthrough. When he said that told me something very important about him, and it speaks to the huge breakthrough that's relevant for every one of you watching or listening to me right now. First, I realized, okay, he plays dirty, right? We've all been in relationships with somebody who fights dirty, right? So when he said, you were kissing so-and-so while I was burying my father, that just tells you, okay, here's somebody reveling in victimhood, somebody playing dirty. This is the sucker punch, because of course, the guy on my team was not kissing his ex during the funeral while they were lowering the body into the grave, which is the way he makes it sound, because it was, they met Saturday night at a bar and they kissed. Nobody's doing a funeral on Saturday night at 10 p.m., right? So, but it's playing dirty. It's like, here I am. I'm this poor lonely victim. I'm burying my father, and you're betraying our relationship. So I recognize, okay, I got to stop wasting time trying to talk my friend out of this, because he's not going to listen to this, because he's holding on to being a victim. And he's getting energy from this. And there's no rational, logical way for me to talk him out of this. He doesn't want to get talked out of this. And that, listen to this, people. I'm telling you right now, one of the biggest reasons you can't forgive yourself is because you're not willing to let go of being a victim. Even for, even if you say, if this coach we talk about say, hey, I had too many drinks, I went out, I got in an accident and I killed a child, or I had too much, I was high on heroin, I went out, I created an accident and I crippled 3 people for life. When you're saying that, you're actually holding on to victimhood. And I hate to sound mean, or I'm not trying to be snarky or nasty, but I'm trying to help you break through and get to the other side of this. And for that to happen, you've got to recognize that part of forgiving yourself is letting go of being a victim, even if it's being a victim of your own creation. Because I feel like I did that a lot in my life. I made myself a victim of my own creation. And why? Of course, worthiness issues. I didn't think I was worthy of prosperity. I didn't think I was deserving of prosperity. So I manufactured situations. I attracted situations that made me a victim. And when I couldn't attract enough situations that made me a victim, I created the victim situations myself. Right? It's like the guy says, hey, I smoked 4 packs a day for 40 years and now I got lung cancer and they're taking out my lungs. I ain't got nobody to blame but myself, right? Yeah, that's true. You might have really manifested that. But if you want to live in prosperity, you're going to have to forgive yourself and stop thinking about, okay, here's the payoff of this being a victim, to how do I find something to replace this emotional payoff that I'm getting by being a victim, so I can get through to the other side and live in prosperity. That's where we've got to get to, guys. All right, a couple things. One thing first, and then we're going to do the offering. Paula put in here, this is that's the book link. And then I thought, up a little above, if you look in the comments, 2 hours for 1 p.m. Puerto Rico. That would be, I think, noon Eastern. They're going to do the prosperity lesson in Spanish. So for all of your Spanish speaking people, 11 a.m. Ciudad de Mexico, noon for Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and 1 p.m. for Puerto Rico. It's in the bottom there. Now, the offering statement, what we do is, I do this on a pay-as-you-desire basis. I call it a for-profit prosperity ministry, because I just got to the point where I say, okay, I can't keep writing all these blog posts, all these podcasts, all these YouTube channels, all these Facebook Lives, and do all this stuff to provide for people who can't afford it. I need to work with my clients, the people who are actually paying me and supporting my work. So I came up with this prosperity ministry idea, and we're just testing it. So if you would go to randygage.com/go, that's where you can support the work. If you want a suggested love offering, this would be a kind of course I would charge probably $37. And I would say, okay, if it's an online course, it's about an hour, it's $37. And if you can and want to support it, and I have a lot of people who pay that amount every week. If you don't have a source of spiritual sustenance and you feel like I'm providing that, you want to tithe to me, I will accept that with the way that the energy you send it with. And if you can only afford $1 a week or $5 a week, then please do that. And if you absolutely cannot afford even $1 a week, and great, watch it anyway. I'm here for you. I want this. I'm hoping the people who can afford to support the work will do it, and that will provide enough that I can keep doing this every week, and the people who can't afford it can get it. And all I ask is that you and everyone share the link every week. We put up the replay on Monday morning. It's up on the podcast so you can listen to it. Monday, by the end of the day, we put it up on the YouTube channel so you can watch it. Please share that with the people. Circulate the prosperity. So whatever your love offering is, I want to read the statement we do because I believe in the energy of prosperity circulation. So we're going to imbue whatever you're donating, giving, we're going to imbue it with this energy. It's on the chat if you want to speak it with me. Prosperity begins with me. Holding this seed offering in my hand or my heart, I send it forth as a vessel of hope, healing, and highest good, knowing it blesses myself, the recipient, and the universe around us. All right, let me give you your assignments, all right? And thank you to the people who put reviews about my book on Amazon. I appreciate it. Anyone who didn't, I would love to hear what you think on Amazon. Or same thing for you guys listening on the podcast. Please put a rating on Apple or Spotify or wherever you're listening. All right, here's your assignments this week. Number 1, mentally forgive everyone you are out of harmony with. Mentally forgive everyone you are out of harmony with. And then you could just do with that affirmation. Divine love produces perfect harmony between us. Assignment number 2, mentally ask for forgiveness from the people you have wronged in the past, gossiped about, are in lawsuits with, or any other kind of disharmony. So to the short version, mentally ask for forgiveness from the people you have wronged. And by the way, if you want to do that, not just mentally, but physically, to call them up, to go there and ask them for forgiveness, if you feel moved to do that, then maybe you want to do that. But even if you don't, I think you create the energy when you mentally do that with yourself. So mentally ask for forgiveness that you know. And like I say, some of those people, you'll never be able to pay back. They may not be in your life anymore. They could have died, right? But you still could mentally ask for their forgiveness and create that healing energy. And then finally, number 3, if you have accused yourself of failure or mistakes, please forgive yourself. If you have accused yourself of failure or mistakes, forgive yourself. Remember, prosperity is on the other side of forgiveness. It's really important that you give yourself that gift. It's really important that you give others that gift. Because, and we're going to talk about this more in future lessons. We're going to talk about the circulation law of prosperity. We're going to talk about the law of giving and receiving. We're going to talk more about the energy and mental energy and how that impacts our prosperity. And again, just it even brings into account the vacuum law, right? Because if your heart is holding on to vengeance, there's no room in your heart for love, right? There are some blessings that you cannot receive until you release something else and create a vacuum. And forgiveness definitely falls into this category. And you're going to get this opportunity every day. Somebody's going to cut you off on I-95. Somebody's going to try to get in front of you in the line at Publix or Whole Foods Market. Somebody's going to say some snarky thing about you. Some idiot's going to post some junk on social media. You're going to have the opportunity to practice this lesson each and every day of your life. And the more you do practice it, the more prosperity you're going to bring into your life. Let's close with this affirmation. We celebrate the following truth. We have prosperity because we choose to accept it. We circulate prosperity joyfully, lovingly, and gratefully. We become prosperity by generous daily living. Prosperity surrounds us everywhere in the universe, yet we know it begins with us. All right, next week, going to be sexy, really sexy, because the topic is money beliefs that keep you broke. So be sure, block off the time next week, 10 a.m. Eastern, money beliefs that keep you broke. And remember, we're here every Saturday. Please tell your friends. We do a prosperity lesson on the principles of prosperity, free enterprise, and generosity. All right. Thank you all for being here. Peace, love, and unicorns.